Here we go, everybody. Hi, it's nice to see you here or not see you. I'm sharing my screen, so it's so I only have a sense of all of you out there. But welcome to our workshop on creating a spin-out and impact plan for your translational seat award proposal. And I'm not sure, Janet, I'm not sure what we're hearing in the background, but maybe we should ask people to mute themselves.
Yes, if everyone can mute, please. I know there's some people on phones, but
Yeah, that sounds better.
thank you.
Because we are recording this. So before we get started, we are recording this session. We will not record the Q&A, but we're going to record now. And we would love questions throughout. Feel free to unmute and ask even during the recording or use the chat function. And Heather Aiken, ART project coordinator, is going to monitor the chat for us. And also we'll be sharing links throughout the session to be helpful. These slides will be distributed to all of you. We've got a bunch of other things coming up in the Translational Seat Award process that we just want to really emphasize. We're hoping that everybody will attend tomorrow's session on pitch decks and milestones. If you've already signed up, thank you so much. If you haven't signed up, we would love to see you at that. We also have 15-minute venture assessment meetings with Julian Lustig Gonzalez, and I'll be talking more about that later. But I hope you will sign up for that. There's a link there, and Heather will put that in the chat either now or when we talk about it more, or both. And then again, thank you all for signing up for office hours. We really appreciate it. We love having those conversations. We hope they're useful to you. More office hours are going to be made available. And so if you don't see a time when you can, sign up, let us know. And if you don't see how anything that I'm saying today applies to your project or anything we discussed today, this would be a good this would be a sign that an office to our discussion might be a good idea. So just to remind everybody about what we're doing here today, spin-out commercialization impact plans are part of the Translational Seat Awards. And the purpose of those is to advance translational and applied R&D efforts toward a couple of vehicles: a spin-out or startup company, or it could be a nonprofit, out-licensing of UMass IP or copyrighted works, scalable community engagement, social impact ventures, or other external entities. So the idea is really of emphasizing the spin-out and impact is that we are looking for teams to take what they're doing beyond the campus to have impact in the broader world. And all of these that I just mentioned are vehicles for doing that. Some definitions. And someone asked me recently, did I want to define translational research on this slide? I did not want to define translational research on this slide. And that is because translational research is really from your perspective, not from our perspective. I think we've been pretty open. I hope we've been pretty open about the fact that we are really trying to broaden this program to encompass the entire campus. And so what someone in biology thinks of as research is not something that somebody in a social science discipline thinks of as research, or somebody in a fine art or a visual art might think of as research. And research effort might be creative works as well as you tell us how you define it. But a university startup and spin-out team really aims to translate whatever it is you're aiming to translate into a real world solution or to address an unmet need. Newcos and new orgs really refer to the entities that are created by university startup and spin-out teams. And it's a generic placeholder for the name of a company or a nonprofit. Um, I don't discuss in this presentation today the entity choice, but I do have a reference to an article about that, and this would be a great topic for office hours potentially. Um, Customers and stakeholders really mean people and organizations who might be a NewCo or New Org's users, purchasers, influencers, champions, beneficiaries, um, or even saboteurs. A stakeholder might be somebody who would be working against you in a way. And so we are really taking a very broad look at who is we want you to take a very broad look at who is in your stakeholder universe. Um, and products and services, I use that interchangeably whenever I'm talking. We really mean what's being delivered to meet customer needs. And then competitors are people or organizations who are aiming to address the same unmet need as the NewCo or the New Org, or even in some cases who are addressing a different unmet need that might be more important to a customer. So lots of different ways to think about this. Before we dig into the translational um, seat award call itself, I want to just uh, share how I think about spinouts and how I hope many of you will think about spinouts. Spinouts are like babies, right? They're not fully fledged independent organizations. They're created by a small group of founders, just like babies are. Their early survival is really going to depend on those founders and a few others nurturing them. And good founders are really aiming to create independent, self-sustaining entities that will have a positive impact on others um, as they go through life and out into the world. Founders have plans and ambitions for the future, but I know from having children and from having worked in startups that there are many unknowns and you can't tell the direction. And the main point, the direction that's actually going to come to pass. And the main point I want to make here is that we're asking you to do plans, but we know that plans change. Uh, Nevertheless, it's important to have them and to share your vision for what you are trying to create. Because with growth and engagement in the wider world, your opportunities are going to come into focus. Your plans and ambitions will change in response, but it is that process of planning and iterating and growing and nurturing your spin out that will help create the translation that we're all looking for. And just like with babies, there are some essential ingredients that startups need, but there are no right answers. Um, and then, um, and then finally, founders are responsible, especially at the beginning, for assuring essential ingredients are there to promote growth and development. So I know I have my list of ingredients that I think children should have or babies should have. Here's my list of ingredients that startups need to have in my experience. And this is my list only in that I wrote this list. This is a list that I think is pretty widely agreed on. First of all, there's the special sauce. Um, for many of you, that will be something that's patentable or that you have know-how that others do not have. You're able to do something better than anyone else in the world. Um, that is usually the first special sauce or the idea, a unique way of looking at things. Um, and that's often where university spinouts ambition starts. Um, there are also motivations that initially come from the founder uh, to do this because it is hard work and we are um, and it's going to take effort and prioritizing this. Another essential ingredient is that early team, those founders that I just talked about. Um, in this case of a spinout, it could be one person, or a startup, it could be one person, but there's a lot of research that suggests that two or three is a great size for the team that is initially starting. And for university spinouts, that can often be a faculty member and a graduate student and a postdoc, or perhaps an outside advisor. But that small team that is really committed and motivated to pushing this startup forward. Then there's something called product market fit, which is a super important concept. The idea that the startup has to produce something that is going to meet a market need. And you'll see on the right side of this slide, this is a study that's a few years old now, but the top 20 reasons startups fail. And the number one reason is no market need. Um, and so it's very important to think very early about product market fit. It's not something that's easy to find necessarily. And finally, a model for financial sustainability, which depends on the first four, but which again, you want to be thinking about early on. These last two really are the hardest. So I'm going to go on unless somebody puts something in the chat. Very good.
All set.
Pardon?
We're all set to move on.
Okay. So with these five essential ingredients, I want to make sure you see it in context of the this this line that we've shared with you before, going from basic research to a spin out on track for success and impact with investment or other funding. So in here with the maroon dots and this pink square is where translational research is going on to build toward that spin out and that high impact research translation. But it's not the only thing that needs to go on here, and that is why we've asked for these spin out plans, is because this is where you start to really develop those plans and execute on them to pave the way in sync with your translational research for being able to really reach escape velocity, become independent. So again, here you can see the special sauce, the motivation, the initial team, they're all within your control. And so that part is really good to address. But these other two elements, the product market fit and the model for financial sustainability and impact, are not within your control. And often teams find that more difficult. Both are evidence-based, both we have good, solid techniques and resources to help you with, but it's super important to plan to establish those. You don't need to know what those are at this point, but thinking about it and have a plan to address them and to develop a plan that takes them into account, we are at the right stage for that now. And so now let's move on to the actual call. So from the full proposal guidelines, really there are two things, two relevant parts here. We want a realistic plan to advance the research, technology, creative work towards follow-on funding resources from investors, grant providers, and or sales to customers. And those really are the key, and so what we really want you to understand is, we want the reviewers to have an understanding of the way you see these different elements and what your commitment is to address them. And so with that, we've asked for a spin-out commercialization impact plan. Last year, this was something that was in the executive summary, but it's been deemed important enough that it's broken out into its own category. And you don't have a lot of space to address it, one page maximum. So there's not a lot that you need to right at this point, but I would urge you to think creatively about um, how to embody this in that one page, and also how to use the pitch deck that we'll be talking about tomorrow to go deeper into that. So what is the scope of the translational seed application, spin-out, commercialization impact plan? We really want you to address 8 interdependent elements. Your mission, product candidates, and that's product service candidates, the unmet needs of customers and stakeholders that you intend to satisfy or address, your differentiation plan, an IP plan, the startup spin-out team, potential business models, and resources to support the development into that self-sufficient enterprise that all of those above things um, uh, are leading to. And then finally, a roadmap and source document for synchronizing the translational research with the non-R&D elements. Um, and that includes grant applications and investor pitches, mostly time-based milestones and expected outcomes. And I'll talk a little bit about time-based milestones today, but there will be more about that in the training session on pitch decks and milestones tomorrow. So really what we're asking for is how founders are expecting to go, you all as founders, expecting to go from where you are now to achieving external impact. And that really requires the case for financial viability, scalability, and impact. So now I just want to connect those 5 essential ingredients. They really relate to every single thing we're asking for in the spin-out and commercialization plan. So first of all, your motivation is going to translate into your mission. It may be that it's often that these ideas start with one motivated person, but as soon as you have 2 or 3 and you're now thinking about how to go out into the world, you want to think about that mission more broadly. Product market fit really is a combination of what you intend to offer and the unmet need or opportunity to be addressed. Both of these are quite flexible at this point. Obviously, you can't tell customers what they need or stakeholders what they need, but you can learn about it. We'll talk about how to do that. And you can adjust product offerings to meet their needs. And sometimes that turns out to be simpler than you think. Sometimes customers don't need the hard scientific problem solved or the hard technical problem solved. They have their own agendas, and that's what will need to be addressed to find product market fit. Special sauce is a combination usually of intellectual property and the differentiation plan, how you're going to be different. We'll talk about both of those in a minute. And then your team, progress toward assembling a startup and spin-out team. And finally, a model for financial sustainability, which is typically a combination of potential business models and the resources needed to support the development into a self-sufficient enterprise. So I want to talk about each of these. Mission is really the North Star that establishes a shared direction. And I've seen startups that start without a mission. It's possible to do, but having that discussion early really creates this North Star, especially for your initial founding team, and then as your team grows. It can change over time. But here are some examples, all from university spinouts. A Clarity Water, which I hope most of you have heard of, is actually a UMass spinout. A Clarity says our mission is to treat PFAS and PFOS in water. So these are the 2 chemicals these are 2 forever chemicals that are really problematic in our environment. They are focused on those in particular, and they are focused on them in water. This was not always their mission. When A Clarity started, they started thinking that they wanted to do general water purification for community wells. But so their mission evolved as they came to understand what customers needed and what they could do um, technically, and then when they aim to be ambitious about having impact on this situation. Embrace Global is a nonprofit startup, or it's not a startup now, it's a well-established nonprofit. A Stanford University student developed with a team this portable, low-cost, easy-to-use incubator, required no electricity, no well-established electricity. Their mission now is to provide their portable, low-cost, easy-to-use infant incubator to every baby in need globally. Again, huge, ambitious mission. Ginkgo Bioworks is an MIT spinoff started by 3 MIT students and a professor. Ginkgo's mission is to make biology easier to engineer. Moderna, again, an MIT spinout, aims to deliver the greatest possible impact to people through mRNA medicines. Pal Water is another UMass spinout. Their mission is to democratize access to clean water, and their vision is to become the most trusted water supplier globally. They're right now working in Africa in very specific markets. So that's their specific growth plan, but their aim is much broader than that. Their mission is much broader. And SolarBlock is our last UMass spinout. They aim to be a provider of solar electric wall systems. So vertical around the nation and the world at the best cost, highest performance, and longest service life. So each of those are missions that will help to guide decisions in the long term for these companies. What product and service candidates do you envision creating and selling for positive impact? Often it's really hard. You're thinking about your research, your special sauce, and how to develop it. But spinouts and impact ventures need to really be thinking about providing solutions to customers. And so, again, it's very early. It's very unlikely that a product or service candidate you envision right now is going to be the exact thing that you end up with. Maybe your molecule needs to get optimized. Maybe you don't understand the price point you need to provide it at. There are many things that you will learn and adjust. But describing that first product or service you're working toward gives you a way of working toward it and making adjustments. It can be an uncomfortable process. Researchers are very often focused on what they know and what they are sure they can provide. And this is a process that actually is asking you to imagine what you can do. Of course, you want to consider, is it feasible? But you also want to take into account, what are the jobs customers need done? And is this something where there's a possibility of long-term economic viability? So there are a couple of different ways I can suggest that you get started. One is to sketch your product in the hand of users. Imagine it, and drawing is a great way of imagining it. This drawing on the right is an early sketch Alexander Graham Bell did of people using a telephone. Um, it's nothing like even an early telephone, but you can see that it is a way of stimulating thinking about people actually engaging with whatever it is you're providing. Other ways I've seen startup teams do this is to write a brochure or a product description or a target product profile um, to express features, benefits, problems that you will solve, promises you would make to customers, performance characteristics. Any of those things is a great start to imagining your product. And again, don't worry about being right. This is your first guess. It's a starting point that we expect it to evolve over time. What's the unmet real world need you will address? This is very hard because this is something that you may have an idea about. You may even have written about it in a proposal or in an article. But when you're talking about a spin out, really the this is in the eyes of customers. And so the questions you really need to answer are what problem or unmet need will your proposed product or service satisfy? Very specifically, who has the problem? Why is it a big pain for them? Why is it important to them? Especially when you're thinking about early adopters, what is the solution that the product or service provides? And then what evidence do you have? So product market fit has become very evidence-based in the last 10 or 15 years, which is a good thing because it really means that it's possible to provide evidence. One of the early sources of evidence might be customer discovery interviews. I know we've suggested to many of you that you engage with the New England I-Core Hub. Take a regional course. I-Core was created for this very reason. The National Science Foundation created this network of hubs as well as a national teams program because they found that in their SBIR program, a lot of great technology was being developed, but those companies were failing because there was no market need. And the idea behind I-Core is that you start to get in touch with customer needs early in technology development so that you can really align the two and create product market fit. But there are other sources of evidence as well. You can have letters of support from someone that says we would be a customer or we would be a partner in developing this technology because there is this important unmet need. You might have other primary evidence through through your research where you maybe have already engaged with potential users in terms of product features. So all of that is potential evidence. It's also possible to use secondary evidence, statistics from a federal report or from news articles, slice of life stories, all of those things I've seen used as secondary evidence. But just like in scholarly research, that secondary evidence tends to be regarded by reviewers and by investors and everyone else who's in this field as less impactful than primary evidence. So please, 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 in your proposal, reference the regional and national I-Core programs you have attended or plan to attend. We know that the reviewers respect those programs and respect the capabilities you develop there. And we'll have some more links to how you can connect with those later on, as well as the ones here. So differentiation plans really are how will you be different and better? And of course, in scholarly research, you have a unique research identity or a unique artistic identity or creative identity. All of those are really important from the point of view of how you're going to compete, but they probably don't go far enough. Once you're starting to talk about actually competing in a marketplace or for customers' attention or the attention of people you want to serve, you really need to start thinking about what is their perspective and how can you be how can you be special in their eyes. So often we think about scientific competitors, business competitors, indirect competitors. What are the alternative approaches? And I've even been part of projects where we have considered indirect competitors whose technology might not be feasible, who may not be credible in our eyes, but who might be credible in the eyes of customers. And then you're always competing against the status quo. Is the problem you're trying to solve important enough for customers and users to pay attention? So all of those things contribute to the argument of how you'll want to make about how your product or service will stand out to customers and stakeholders and be credible to them. Most everyone, not entirely everybody, but most everyone will have an intellectual property plan. And even you know, IP is not just patents. It's copyrights, trademarks, trade secrets, um, out licensing of know-how. Um, there are open source business models, and then there's also contracts and employee agreements that can be very important as you start to spin out. So all of these things are really important. Another important aspect is if you have a patent, do you have freedom to operate? That is, do you need to license someone else's patent to be able to create the technology that you are aiming to create in your product? All of these are questions. Again, you don't need to have all the answers, but you'll want to be thinking about them, both in terms of intellectual property that you may protect as UMass IP, and also as intellectual property that you may protect as a new co or a new org. And these resources on the right are resources that I think might be useful to you. Certainly the Tech Transfer Office. They do a fantastic job of advising all faculty, and they really are a faculty service organization. So please reach out to them. They have monthly office hours. You can make an appointment with one of their professional staff. They're a great resource, and not just for patents, for copyrights and for just talking through what you're thinking about. We also have a fantastic resource at the library, the Patent and Trademark Resource Center. This is a specialized resource that is funded by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. We have a patent examiners database. The librarian there is specially trained and can help you with trademarks as well. There's lots of information there. If you wanted some more training on intellectual property, the National Academies of Inventors has a training. It's about 3.5 hours, and it's quite thorough. I watched it a couple weekends ago. It doesn't cover just patents. It covers licensing. It covers trade secrets. It covers copyrights, and they give some pretty interesting history about why the system is set up like it is. So parts of it you might want to go faster, you might want to pick and choose, but it's a great resource. And then I couldn't not plug IALS Venture Development office hours. Wolf Greenfield's attorney Tani Chen generously comes every month to 6 weeks and provides half-hour free advice. Um, and he's well aware of our policies. He's not so much giving advice about UMass IP, but he is very forward-looking about how does intellectual property fit into a new co or new org's um, uh, plan and strategy. And Wolf Greenfield's a boutique intellectual property law firm, so he has lots of colleagues who specialize in not only patents but trademarks and copyrights, and he's a great source of information. So this is really the summary: is how are you planning to protect what you build, um, and that might sound selfish, but it's also the one way in which companies and nonprofits are able to make sure that they can steward their intellectual property appropriately. So your startup team, you may be starting with one person or two or three people. I hope you're starting with two or three people, but it's not too early now to start thinking about roles. Who's going to do what? Who's going to do I-Core? Who's interested in product market fit? Who is interested in doing this as a graduate student because they want to learn a little bit about it? Who thinks that they might want to continue with a spin-out after they graduate or a postdoc? Some of this will bring you into thinking about conflict of interest and all of that, but all of that is benefits from communication now. And then looking further down the road, who else will you need? Just like with a baby, when you start thinking about sending them to nursery school or kindergarten, their world expands. They have a teacher, they have a pediatrician, they have uh, a, friends. They have other people who are guiding them, perhaps aunts, uncles. Um, this is the way to think about your startup team is who do you need? What technical advice do you need? What industry advice do you need? Um, uh, we've had teams that have started with a particular technology, but they don't know anything about the problem the customer has, and so they might look for advice from someone who's either a potential customer or um, uh, somebody who's got that expertise. And then service providers. Uh, do you need an attorney? We have startup attorney who, again, gives free advice and who can be on your team, at least for right now, to give that advice before you need a startup attorney. Um, and then, the two potential sources here are your research team and external recruits. And I'll just give a shameless plug for IALS Venture Development here. We have MBA students, we have myself, we have an associate director, and we really are aiming to help you by being part of your team before you're ready to coalesce that team for your own startup. And we have resources that we try to allocate very carefully to do that for everyone we can. Potential business models. This really is how to describing how your NewCo or new org will make money such that it will be financially self-sustaining, how you're going to create value for customers, and how you'll have positive social impact. And I'm giving you here one model for doing that, for sketching it out on one page. This is the business model canvas that I-Corps uses. It was developed by Alex Osterwalder, and it has and there's a reference to a little article he wrote. He's got on the web about business models at the end. But really, the BMC is a very useful model at your stage. It has these 9 buckets. So value propositions, customer segments, customer relationships, channels of distribution, key partners, key activities, key resources. What's your cost structure? What's your revenue? What will be your revenue streams? And so you can see that all of these are important to planning for a NewCo. But I've highlighted value propositions and customer segments because the entire business is going to be a function of, at least initially, of what value are you providing to customers and who are your customers? And that is the essence of product market fit. So if you can't think about anything else yet, think about that. What benefits will you be creating? What value will you be creating for your customers? And who will your customer segments be? And then resources needed to support development. This is a sampler of some resources, but there are tons of resources when you get to the spin-out stage, hopefully. But for now, you really need to think carefully about both funding sources that could come to your U.S. faculty members as a faculty and graduate student team, or potentially as a NewCo or a new org. And so some of those are grants and donations, investors who would want to take a share. But there are, so as you're thinking about nonprofit or for-profit, we're happy always to talk to you about who could be investors. I'm aware of at least a couple of groups that do venture philanthropy, and they invest in nonprofit organizations as well as for-profit organizations. Industry partners might be a source of funding or in-kind support. Out licensing, customers and sales are always a great source of support, even if it's just a little bit of money. It's evidence that someone wants what you have, and investors will feel good about that as well. And then there are lots of potential in-kind resources, and realistically, you have to make the most of those at this early stage. So that can be advisors and mentors, and we can be a source of referrals and look for people who might make sense for you. But you can do that too in your own network. And often faculty teams find alumni, either from their own labs or from a broader group that can be helpful. As I said, IALS Venture Development, my group, um, provides resources. ICOR, ART training is coming. It's really here right now. This is part of the training, and so take advantage of everything we're providing. And then SBIR coaching, which we do some of on campus, but we can also refer you out. So we have access to lots of potential in-kind resources. And then I'm going to end with something about milestones and roadmap, which we'll talk about a lot more later, but it is part of your spin-out plan. This is where I think you'll probably want to take advantage of the pitch deck to reference it from the spin-out plan, the one-page spin-out plan, to say, see the pitch deck for our timing. And I'm not going to discuss it here except to say that with a milestone, you can really tell the whole story of everything you're doing: translational research, product development based on your product concept, customer validation, meaning how are you finding, identifying the customer needs, unmet needs you're going to fill. Are you going to get support from foundations? Are you going to build an advisory board? What kind of fundraising are you going to? And the last line that we don't mention in the spin-out plan, but some of you should be thinking about, is regulatory. If you're in a regulated industry, you'll want to think about that. So some relevant links to more information. These are some articles that I think might be helpful. There's an article here about, should your startup be a for-profit or a nonprofit? The Harvard Business Review.org articles are all available through the UMass library, through our subscription to HBR. This is how to spin your scientific research out of a university. It's a really excellent article. It's available online at Y Combinator. A Clarity Bootstrap Journey is a podcast with Julie Bliss-Mullen, who until recently was CEO there. This is a very short article on what is business model. And lastly, the 8-word mission statement is a very short article in the Stanford Social Innovation Review by Kevin Starr. This is really shares a mission, an approach to mission that is used by one of these venture philanthropy organizations I mentioned. It's a really interesting organization. I don't know that it's relevant to anyone here, but I don't know that it's not in terms of their scope of interest. But they have a really good process, and I think whether you're thinking about a nonprofit or for-profit, it doesn't make the mission statement overly complex. And it focuses on connecting it to action. Another resource I want to mention is Venture Assessment Office Hours. I'm going to introduce Julian Lusting-Gonzalez once I stop sharing the slides. But this is an instrument we use in venture development to just keep track and get our bearings on where a new pre-startup project or a startup is, in terms of 6 categories: technology and product, intellectual property, technology and venture structures, market discovery and development, funding and in-kind resources, and business model. And these all align exactly with, the words are slightly different, but they all align with the elements in the spin-out plan, as well as the essential ingredients. So the word mission is never here, for example, but it is certainly part of what we assume a business plan would need. So it's embedded in there. Julian is going to be holding with some of our summer business innovation fellows 15-minute venture assessment meetings to work one-on-one with any of you that want it, to take stock of where you are right now, what you've got uh, in your armamentarium. I will warn you that we are hard graders, so the idea here is that every single thing in each cell needs to be uh, uh, a yes before we would say you've completed this part, but that's okay. The idea here is to keep you on, give you something to keep you on track. This information and this assessment is definitely in support of your efforts. It would not be shared and will not be shared with reviewers, strictly for your information. And we found it useful when is something we do for pre-startups and startups as they enter into working with us in IALS venture development. And it's something we think some of you might find interesting and informative. So I hope you'll take advantage of that. And then other campus resources that I hope you'll pay attention to. You'll all get signed up unless you opt out of. We have a monthly resource letter from IELTS Venture Development on resources. There are accelerating research translation programs and a mailing list for that. You'll all be signed up for that unless you opt out. I-Corps at UMass is now part of the New England I-Corps Hub. And that link will take you there, but we'll say a word about that, another word in a moment. Technology Transfer Office. I haven't talked about the UMass Innovation Institute yet, and I want to just say a word about them. This is their faculty guide to industry, and their job, and they're part of corporate engagement, and their job, one of their jobs, is to facilitate connections between faculty and industry. So happy to provide introductions there, or for you to just reach out if you think that's something you want to do. So consider planning to engage with these in parallel with your translational research plan. You don't have to engage with all of them now, but think about how they could help you as you develop your and start to execute on your nascent spin-out and impact plan. And then any questions? We'll stop the recording in a minute, but this is my last time to say, please sign up for tomorrow's training. Please sign up for the 15-minute venture assessment meeting. Please go ahead and schedule more translational seat award office hours with us. And if there's anything else we can do to help you, don't hesitate to reach out by email at this email address, and we'll be getting a copy of these slides out to you.